Amanda Jeté-Knox is an award-winning writer, human rights advocate, and public speaker. She is the recipient of the 2014 Joan Gullen Journalism Award for Media Excellence in Small Print. Her work and her family's journey so far has been featured on CBC, The Globe and Mail, Chatelaine, Upworthy, BuzzFeed, Us Weekly, Up Rocks, Ottawa Family Living, The Today Show, and various other national and international publications, podcasts, and media outlets. She also continues to write for her blog, The Maven of Mayhem, which is where you first came to my attention in what feels like a lifetime ago. So for those of us who are joining us at home, Amanda and her wife Zoe are joining us in studio today, and I am thrilled to have you here as my first guests on What She Said.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be here.
This is so odd to me to have you sitting here.
It is.
Yeah, because just think back. I think maybe I met you about 8 years ago.
I think it was that long ago. Yeah.
Right. So I've sort of been following along on this journey. So I'm going to let you and Zoe sort of catch everybody up to speed where we're at. So let's start with your daughter.
Okay. So in 2014, early 2014, someone had said, "Hey, Amanda, what does your family look like?" I would have said, "Oh, well, we're a mom and a dad and 3 boys," because that is what we put out there to the world. That's what I thought was the makeup of our family. Early in 2014, we got an email from our middle child, who was 11 at the time, and it said, "Please try to understand, please don't be mad," and went on to essentially tell us that she is transgender. So she was trying to tell us that when she was born, the doctors looked at her, we all looked at her, and it was declared that she was a boy, but she wasn't a boy. And this whole time she had been struggling with that and just didn't have the words for it. So that was the first sort of experience in our family of a change like that, a transition, and sort of upsetting the norm that I had this idea that we had, right?
Right. So the foundation beneath you was rocked a little bit. But you guys rose to the occasion amazing, because I remember you at the time sharing this story, and it was just beautiful how you both reacted. And I think that should be held up for all parents.
Well, I think that unconditional love should be unconditional. Right. So I remember that night so well. We sort of looked at each other and thought, what are we going to do? And the answer was so simple, and that was just go into her room and tell her that we love her and that we'll figure the rest out later.
Right. Perfect. So Zoe, for you, what did that moment do for you?
It terrified me mostly because I'd known for a long time that I was in the same situation. But I, unlike Alexis, had never had the courage to tell anybody when I was her age.
Right.
And didn't really have the words to do that until I was much older. Because, at that time, there was no Google or anything to just look that up, right? So you couldn't just go online and say, why do I feel like a girl? And find the answers. But for me, that was also a bit of an awakening. And, over the next year and a half, as I watched her start to come into being her true self, it was too much for me to keep going.
Right.
So I also came out.
So that was in 2015. 2015.
It was about 18 months later.
So again, world shook. Right?
Right. World shook, I think, in an even bigger way.
A much bigger way.
Because, that's our relationship. And we had been together for 22 years or so. We had been married for 18 at that point. We had kids together. We had a life together. And so finding out that the person I married had been keeping something that big was hard at first. And it wasn't like, it wasn't really like a feeling of betrayal so much as just shock. Like I was, and fear. There was so much fear for both of us.
Yeah, like there was a lot of fear in my coming out that wasn't there for Alexis, because I had this whole life built up that was going to explode, right?
Right.
You don't realize how many places your name appears until you transition.
Yeah.
And, just thinking of all those documents, all those places where your identity is.
I never
really
thought of
daunting.
that. It's funny, I've not I'm currently going through a separation and divorce, and 18 months into this journey, and I'm still finding my old married name in places that shock me. So it's true. I totally see what you're saying now.
That's exactly it. Right?
Yeah, you're just going, oh, great. Another place I need to change this. Yeah.
And then there's the whole discrimination factor,
right?
Huge. I mean, while technically you can't get fired for being trans or LGBTQ or, anything of the sort, there can be workplace upsets. There can be, people who aren't as kind to you anymore. The environment can get less comfortable. She's the major breadwinner in our family. And what does that look like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were just so many things. And I had been living with somebody who had been chronically unhappy for years and years and years. And, was coming out going to change that? Or was it just going to be harder for her and for us?
Right.
Exactly. I mean, I was terrified that I would lose my job, that we would lose
Right.
the house, that our kids would not have anywhere to live or anything to eat.
Yeah.
That I would never be able to find another job, for example. Right.
Right. And now I do recall, though, that your work rose to the occasion.
They certainly did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my team in particular, and a couple of people on that team, and I won't embarrass them by giving names, but they organized a really beautiful coming back to work thing for me after I first came out. So I sent a big email to everyone and said, hey, this is the scoop, and I'm going to take some time off. And when I come back, I will be Zoe.
Right.
And they really rose to the occasion. And when I got back, my whole, desk and cubicle and everything was decorated with like rainbow butterfly streamers.
I mean, that story was
gorgeous.
So heartwarming and made me so proud of my community. That was just wonderful.
Fantastic.
So, Amanda, you've become sort of you have become a huge advocate for trans people the world over. And I know from following you on every social account that this is absolutely tireless work. So let's start with the end, because I like to do this a lot when I'm problem solving. Tell me what the world looks like when you finally turn to Zoe and say, I need to get a new job. Like, my work here is done.
Everything's dried up.
Yeah,
There's no business anymore.
Exactly. So
nothing to tweet about.
What does the world look like for you?
It looks like nobody cares anymore, right?
Right.
I mean, the reason why we are the reason why I'm so busy and our family is so busy is because people want to know about this. This is new information to them. They don't really understand what transition looks like. They don't really understand the concept of trans people. They don't really understand how our family could have survived and thrived in this situation. So to me, it basically means that I have now made myself completely irrelevant, and I need to go and make coffee or something, open a little coffee shop somewhere.
Right.
Serve some butter tarts, right?
I'm in on the butter tarts. Totally there. So that's the end result. Then what are the steps we need to start taking to get us there?
Normalization is a big part of it, I think.
Right.
And that's kind of the quiet activism that I do more than what she does. So Amanda does the really in-your-face educational activism type stuff, which is really super important.
Yep.
And what I do is more just kind of the living my life and being very visible doing it activism. And
yeah, it's funny you were talking about that, because I remember one time Amanda said, if you want to normalize trans people, go follow a bunch of them,
exactly
on Twitter.
that.
And I did that. And so now, I think I just immediately just went through and just clicked on 100 names to put them in my feed. And what I found is that they're all just sharing pictures of their lunch too.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, my feed is all what I made for dinner. Here's some cat pictures. I saw this very cool pineapple growing out there in the lobby.
Exactly,
So.
And it has completely normalized that in my feed, right? So I think that's a really good point, is on social media, is to include that sort of in what you're consuming.
Right.
Through books and social media and on TV and film. I look at my life sometimes and I think that I'm overwhelmed, and then I go to your timeline, and and I think no, I'm good. I didn't receive a single death threat today. Right.
That's a bonus.
And I'm not I'm serious. I don't know how you manage all the hate thrown your way. So how do you manage this?
Honestly, it's going to sound really cheesy, but love. I have an amazing partner.
Right.
I have wonderful kids. I have great friends.
Yeah.
I have a doctor who understands that I have an anxiety disorder and treats me, well. And I go to the gym, a lot of self-care and just breaks, because it is really hard. I get enough threats that I actually have to assess them myself and decide whether or not it's worth going to file a police report, which I've done a few times, but I don't want to overuse that either. And it's such a tough thing, right? People get really reactive online, and I think when the threats stop coming in and the name calling and the insults and filling my inbox day in and day out with this awful stuff, and my family, it's not just me. And whatever I get, I mean, trans people who are really visible are getting it 10 times worse, right? So I think it's just a matter of having your community and knowing that loud voices get noticed, but also create change. So I try to use that as a way to keep pushing forward.
Right. And that's absolutely true. You know, that is how you create change, is just slowly and just one step at a time, and through the quiet activism and the very in-your-face activism. So it's a beautiful partnership. So where can people go to get your book?
Well, you can get my book just about anywhere.
Right.
It was featured very prominently by Chapters Indigo this year. Thank you, Chapters Indigo. They really loved it.
And you just landed on the CBC
Canada Reads, a long list Canada Reads,
That's
which is amazing for 2020. Thank you. Yeah, that was a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
So you can get it at just about any bookstore, your local indie bookstore, your bigger bookstore, just about, and you can order it online.
Okay. And so people can also find your writing online at the Maven of Mayhem. You're still writing there?
Yep, I am still writing there when I am not doing other things.
Right.
So, you can find me on there at AmandaJetéKnox.com or themavenofmayhem.com, on Twitter at Maven of Mayhem. Facebook is the same, and you just have to put some underscores between Maven of Mayhem on Instagram to find me there.
And so finally, I know that just from following you that a lot of people have read your book and have heard you speak who are trans and have not come out yet, and are so if there's someone listening right now who's afraid to come out, where should they turn? Who should be the first place they turn to?
There are, in pretty much every major community, there are some resources. Like here in Toronto, there's the 519, for example, that has a transition support program. So I think, those resources are there and they can be found. But connect with the community.
Okay.
That's the best.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you for joining us on What She Said.
Thanks for having us.